Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name's Neil Perry, and today I'm going to run through a bit of a look at the BackupAssist MultiSite Manager. It's going to be quite a short presentation, this one, probably about half an hour. I'm just going to sort of introduce the software so you can see how it works in a local environment on a LAN, and we'll also have a look at a bit how we can use it across the WAN to take control of multiple BackupAssist installations across multiple sites. So without further ado, so what is the BackupAssist MultiSite Manager? Well, as I sort of give you a little introduction there, it's really a tool, a software tool that's designed to allow you to manage multiple BackupAssist version 8 installations. It is a piece of software. You install it either on site. Now it can be used for a single site, so you could install it on a customer site, on an individual site, and it would be used to take care of all of the BackupAssist installations on that site. Or it can be installed in the cloud or on another site and be used to take care of multiple installations across multiple sites. Effectively, it could be used as a tool for resellers to manage their customers' installations of BackupAssist. The idea really is once you've installed this software, it's very hands-off. It's a simple installation and it's controlled through the web interface. As well as the ability to manage multiple installations of BackupAssist, the MultiSite Manager collates all of the reports and can provide daily email reporting on a per site or on a total global basis. So in a lot of ways, it replaces the central monitoring console, if anybody's used to using that tool previously. You can, as an administrator of multiple BackupAssist, you can receive a daily email that will alert you of any potential issues that you need to then investigate. As an interface, there is complete control over BackupAssist installations, but it also collates all of the job monitoring. So it's very quick to drill down into an installation and look at different jobs themselves. You can monitor them running live, and you can look at the reports as they have been running. You can also manage all the licenses across all the installations. So if you've got lots of installations of BackupAssist and you're not quite clear when licenses need renewing, what license add-ons are applicable for which installation, you can use the MultiSite Manager to very quickly see all of the sites as a nice table view. I'll have a look at that later on as we go through the slides. And then finally, as well as sort of the web interface, if you do need to do more advanced features in BackupAssist, then you can take complete remote control of a BackupAssist installation through the MultiSite Manager tool. So there's no real need to have to resort to remoting into a customer site or remote into a remote site and actually getting the full remote desktop connection. The MultiSite Manager takes care of that for you. So I wanted to sort of start by looking at deployment. Where do we install the MultiSite Manager and how can it be used to manage different machines? So the simplest setup really is a single site. So if we think about a completely self-contained LAN solution, this doesn't really have any connection to the internet as far as the MultiSite Manager is concerned. You can install it on any machine internally on the internal network. It will work quite happily on Windows Server OSs from 2008 upwards and Windows 7 and Windows 8 client operating systems. It can be installed on a machine running BackupAssist, but it is a self-contained application, so you don't have to think about it being, on a machine running BackupAssist at all. It can be a dedicated machine, it can be a virtual machine, and its role really is to allow you to connect to internal BackupAssist computers. Now, the way the MultiSite Manager works is it really expects to talk to a single installation of BackupAssist that's set up as a site controller. So even if you're running just as a single site, you still have to dedicate one installation of BackupAssist, and that can be any machine running BackupAssist as a site controller, and it's that site controller that registers itself against the MultiSite Manager. Any other installations of BackupAssist behind the site controller or other machines on the network, effectively they register themselves against the site controller. So you build this tree topology. The MultiSite Manager talks to the site controller, and the site controller talks through to the other BackupAssist computers. From the MultiSite Manager's point of view, in that scenario with 4 installations, you would see 4 installations of BackupAssist. if we take that a little bit further and look at a sort of multi-site solution, here you can see that you can still use the multi-site manager to manage multiple sites. So we've got 3 sites here, and the multi-site manager in this environment is actually going to exist somewhere outside of all 3 of those sites. So that could be a machine in a cloud platform, like a Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Service machine, or it could be a dedicated machine at your own site, wherever you want to access multi-site manager from. Like I said before, each site, each physical network would have an installation of BackupAssist configured as a site controller. And that site controller, you configure it and you point it to the multi-site manager. So it's an outbound connection. That's important here. There's no inbound traffic needed, no firewall ports. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a couple of slides. But the idea is that the site controllers register themselves against the multi-site manager, and then all the internal machines running BackupAssist, because they're talking internally to the BackupAssist site controller, they're registered there, and there's no external traffic. So it is this tree effect. It's a tunneled connection through to the multi-site manager. So if a site loses internet connection, then temporarily that site controller will lose registration against the multi-site manager, but as soon as that internet connection comes available again, it will re-register itself and the tunnel is recreated. So it self-manages the communication through to all of the installations. You as an administrator can then access the multi-site manager through a web service from anywhere. The idea is that you make that multi-site manager web service available through a single port, typically using HTTPS for security, and then you can take control, because you're accessing the multi-site manager, you can take control of any BackupAssist installation on any site. And that installation then, so this is a sort of a brief preview of what you would see in the multi-site manager. You effectively would see all the sites that you're managing, and then you can then drill down into the site. So think of the sites as the site controllers. You can then drill down into the sites to look at all the installations that those sites have. So I quickly touched on ports and firewalling, but I just want to mention this in a little bit more depth, because I think this is important to understand if you're trying to set up multi-site manager for the first time. The actual software, the multi-site manager installation, can run over HTTP, but I really wouldn't recommend that in a real environment. So you would generally set it up to run over a single port, a HTTPS service over port 8465 by default. That is configurable if you want to change it, but that's the default port. Therefore, you will need an SSL certificate on the machine that you install multi-site manager on. That can be a self-signed certificate, and there's instructions on how you can very quickly create that within Windows. Or you can purchase a root trusted certificate and bind the multi-site manager to that as well, if you want to get around any potential license alerts. It's worth bearing in mind that all of the connections into the multi-site manager are inbound. The multi-site manager doesn't need to connect out to anything. You're accessing it via a web interface to manage it over 8465, and the sites, which if I go to the next slide, the sites themselves will connect through to the multi-site manager. They connect to it again over those services 8465. Like I mentioned before, the sites can connect over a standard HTTP connection on 8464. I wouldn't recommend that for security reasons. I'll come back to that for the other machines inside the network. So once you've set up the multi-site manager and you've opened up that single port to be accessible from any site that you need to access it, generally speaking, you probably make that open so it's publicly accessible, or you can have a complex arrangement of firewall rules to open up each site every time from its source IP. So assuming that you've registered a site, I'll show you how you do that in a moment, any other machines behind that site, they connect to this site controller over HTTPS or HTTP on those two ports, 8464 and 8465. Generally speaking, to keep things simple, because that traffic is internal, that's where you can potentially use just standard HTTP. If you want the added security of knowing that the internal traffic between BackupAssist installations and the site controller is encrypted, then again, you would need an SSL certificate on each of the site controller machines. So that's the basic topology that really is worth keeping in mind, that the BackupAssist installations have a site controller, and the site controllers register against the multi-site manager. So from a licensing point of view, what do we need to purchase? What licenses are needed at what stage to allow this to work? Well, it's actually really straightforward with the multi-site manager. There is a single license for the multi-site manager that covers an unlimited number of sites and unlimited number of BackupAssist installations. You're not licensed on the number of sites you're managing. The only requirement is that each site and each BackupAssist installation has upgrade protection. That's needed to always have the latest release, but it's also detected and needed to allow it to be registered with a multi-site manager. So if any of the sites, any of the installations lose that, if the upgrade protection expires, then you'll still see it in the multi-site manager, but you won't get any further reports or be able to manage that installation. It will be clearly show that it's out of upgrade protection. I'll come back to the actual licensing a little bit later on, but the multi-site manager, like I say, is a single yearly license that you renew on a year-by-year basis. So let's look a little bit in detail of how we actually go about registering a site controller, because hopefully, from after this webinar, people will be downloading the trial and having a look at setting up for themselves. So I thought it'd be worth showing you actually how you go through the process. So imagine we're setting up our very first installation of BackupAssist, and we've installed the multi-site manager on a machine locally on the network, or even another network. It doesn't actually matter. The very first thing we need to do is to go into that BackupAssist installation and configure it to be a site controller. So if you're familiar with BackupAssist already, you should have noticed there is a remote button near the bottom of the software, and under there, from version, I should mention, sorry, is version 8 onwards. So there's no support for the multi-site manager previous to version 8. So in this example, it's 8.1.0. We're now on 8.1.1. There's an option to click on remote setup. So if we click there, that will bring up the dialog window to allow you to connect to or register against the multi-site management console. So you have to tell this installation what's its role. Is it a site controller, or is it a regular BackupAssist computer behind a site controller? In this example, we're setting up the first site controller. So when we select site controller, the HTTP port it's referring to here is what port should it answer on for all of the other machines connecting to it. So we can leave that as the default 8464. Like I mentioned before, generally speaking, installations talking to site controllers is internal on the LAN, and you don't need to worry about running that over HTTPS. If you'd like to run it over HTTPS, you can do, and you can tick that option and select an SSL certificate, but we'll keep things nice and simple here. So because we're registering the site controller, we then need to click on the multi-site manager registrations link at the bottom. That will bring up a new window that will then allow you to go and search for a multi-site manager. If it hasn't already got one that it can see, then you would enter its host name or IP address. That can be local on the network, or like you can see in this example, that's an external host. I've registered a nice DNSA record to point to my IP address that the multi-site manager is installed on. But that's nice, and if you can, but there's no reason why you can't run that over just a standard IP address. And because I'm connecting this connection over HTTPS, I've ticked the option, and it's defaulted to the HTTPS port of 8465. The only other thing you need to do here is give this site a name. You're installing or you're configuring this BackupAssist installation to be a site controller. It's going to represent on and manage all the internal machines of this site. So here we've just told it's customer site 1, but of course that could be any name that you want. So what that will do now is it will go register against the multi-site manager. Now, if you come across this error and you think, oh, there's a problem, it's not actually a problem here. What it's telling you is it's found the multi-site manager server, but the SSL certificate that it's found is not root trusted, which is very common in this scenario because a lot of people like to just create a self-signed certificate. We ourselves use the self-signed certificate on this demonstration. So you can view the self-signed certificate if you want to, or you can just ignore this message from now on. But it's a warning to say, this is a non-trusted certificate. So it goes and registers itself against the multi-site manager. Should come back with a notification that has been successful. And then you should see that this installation is then registered against the multi-site manager. It is possible to register against multiple multi-site managers. I haven't yet come across a scenario that anybody wants to do that, but it's I assume it's, if you've got quite a complex requirement where you need local management as well as a sort of global management. So it is possible to do that, but I'm not really going to cover that in this demonstration today. So once it's registered against the multi-site manager, what do you see? What do you actually see in the web interface? Now, I'm not going to go through an installation of multi-site manager. It really is as simple as downloading a single executable, choosing an install directory and clicking next. Once it's installed, then you would log into it over the default port 8465. It gives you default username and password, and it immediately asks you to set up a new password. So you can then, from then on, you're straight into the web interface. The first thing we need to do when we've registered a site controller is acknowledge it within the installation, within the multi-site manager installation. This is called pending registration. If you didn't have this step, then it wouldn't stop. It would allow anybody on the internet to register themselves against your multi-site manager, and you wouldn't want that to happen. So the very first thing you'll see when you log into the multi-site manager is this view. Now, if it's a fresh installation, there'd be no sites, but obviously I've already connected to multiple sites here, so you can see them in the table in the middle. But you can see straight away that it's got a nice red box saying pending registration. So what it's telling me is a site controller is wanting to register against the multi-site manager. And if I click on that box, it will then expand and show me the details about that site controller. Obviously, that's where the site's name is important. You need to, naming convention. It will tell me the NetBIOS name of the machine that's connecting. And you can either approve or reject that connection. If you approve the connection, then it will add it to the list of sites that you manage. And you've now got a tunnel created between the site controller and the multi-site manager. Now, before I go deep into all of the features of the multi-site manager, I just want to quickly explain how you'd register another BackupAssist installation that's behind the site controller. Because typically somebody sets up a site controller and then they want to register other machines behind it. If your site only has one installation of BackupAssist, then they're all site controllers. It's as simple as that. But if you have other installations, even if there's just only one behind it, what you would do is, so we're now effectively on an installation on the site behind the site controller. We'd choose exactly the same step, but with this time we choose that it's a regular BackupAssist computer and it's looking for a local site controller. So I'd choose the internal IP address typically, or the NetBIOS name or host name of the internal site controller. Same comment, and you'd register it that way. The advantage of doing this is there's only one connection that leaves the site going to the site manager, and the site controller tunnels all that traffic out for you. So now when we look at the site manager, we can actually then see multiple computers per site. So here you can see that we've got all of our 4 sites. Here's our new site that I've added, and here's our existing sites. And you get straight away, you get some information about what's going on. Are there any potential issues that you need to drill down and look into? So you can see that I have some issues here on certain sites that I need to then look at. You can click on a site, or you double click on a site to access it, which we'll do in a moment. You can also edit the configuration of that site. If you want to, you can remove a site completely. If you feel that no longer needs to be managed, you can remove it. And sometimes you might want to then add it back in at a later date. That's fine. You just treat it as a new pending registration. So let's go into an actual site and look at what a site looks like. So you can see now that at the top I've actually selected my own site, the Zen Software site, and these are the list of computers that are managed on that site. So here, the one with the star is the site controller. That's the machine I designated as the site controller. All the other machines are connected to it as standard BackupAssist installations. You can see the BackupAssist version across all the sites, and one of the things you'll notice straight away is one of those installations is out of date, which we can come back to, and I'll show you how we can update that a little bit later on. The status tells me that all the sites are connecting fine. I haven't got any problems with connecting through to the data on the machines when they were last contacted. So you can see if there have been any connection issues, that would be clear. How long the connections have been unavailable, how many jobs each site has. So you get a quick overview of the complexity of sites, the number of jobs they've got, and obviously the status. You can see here that at the time I had a particular issue with this particular server, and a comment. You can edit a comment on these if you obviously the server names here, but sometimes server names aren't that clear, so it's worth being able to add your own comment as well. So let's imagine we want to actually go into one of these computers and start looking at the jobs that it contains. Okay, so here I've selected one of the sites. In this case, the site is called Micro 1 Backup. So that's a machine behind the site controller, and straight away you can see that it's running 3 separate jobs. Tells me what sort of engine it is, so I can see this is a file replication engine. It's a bit difficult on these slide shots to show, but if you hang over these buttons, it will give you more information about what these icons represent. So this is a file replication job, a file protection job to a USB hard drive, the scheme it's using, and you can see information like when the job was last started, how long it lasted for, when it's next going to be running, and also the current status. So none of these jobs are running at the time. If you actually select a job, if we go into the job monitoring window, you can actually select a job. You see here it's actually running. Then you get a live visible view of how the job is running, what stage it's at, how long it's been running for, and if you need to, you can cancel it from here. So straight away you've got a very similar interface that you would if you were locally connected to BackupAssist. You don't have to go in just to see things running. It's not just about reports, but you can access and view jobs and see the current status of those jobs. We can also drill down into the reports on a site. So again, if we're looking at the main job window for this particular machine, we can click on View Reports at the top here to actually go and have a look at how the job has been running over the last few days. So you can see here I've got an example where I've had a few problems at different days, and I can click on any one of these. I can scroll down and go right back in time to look at those jobs and open them up as a full HTML report, as you would if you were looking on the job reporting window on the machine. So you can see here that the problem was actually trying to mount a VHD data container at the time, and you can drill down and see more data. If you feel that you need to then edit those jobs, actually change the files and folders being backed up, or the time the job runs, anything about the actual job settings, that's when you need to get remote access. The MultiSite Manager allows you to view and monitor things, but the actual configuring of jobs currently you do through the remote control option. So you can see here that every machine that you've got access to, you can if you double click on that machine, where's the actual window? You can initiate a remote session, and that then brings up effectively an RDP session, but it's an RDP session to the interface for the BackupAssist application only. It's not a full desktop interface, unless there are certain scenarios on certain operating systems where it doesn't support remote application, and it does open up a full window, but it will usually warn you of that when it's about to connect to the actual client. Generally speaking, what it will do is it will connect through, and it creates an RDB remote desktop file that if you double click on will actually then bring up the familiar BackupAssist full console. So we're now running the console remote to the actual installation of BackupAssist, and you can go and edit and change any of the settings within BackupAssist. As soon as you make any save changes, they're automatically, they're changed live on the remote installation. Another key feature of the MultiSite Manager is the ability to remotely update the version of BackupAssist. So as I showed you a little bit earlier on, I had one installation there that was running an earlier version. Here it is, it's running 8.1.0, and it's kind of clear because it's also highlighted blue. And if I click on it as a link, it will now initiate a remote update of that application to the latest version. Now, the way that this works is Site controllers, when you click on a site controller and update a site controller, it will then actively go and download the installer and put that installer on the site controller as a machine. Then it will run the installer and update the site controller. You have to update a site controller first before you can update any machines behind the site controller. If you then try and update one of the machines behind the site controller, what it will do is it knows that it can get the download from the site controller, and it uses that local copy of the installer, copies it locally, runs it, and then deletes that installer from the installation on that machine. The reason they do that is assuming that you have lots of machines behind a site controller, it's wasteful to go and download the installer every time. So generally, the rule of thumb is you update your site controllers first, and then you update the machines behind the site controller. So when we click on a machine to update it, a dialog box will come up. It will ask you whether you want to install the latest version. So in this scenario, it knows that the local version it can update to is 8.1.1. Whether it should just run as the installer as the local user that you've set up under BackupAssist user identity, which is typically what you'd want to do, or you can specify a local Windows administrator account, and then you can click on Update Computer. And it's doing a complete remote update. It's just talking to the remote machine. It's pushing the installer to it. It's then checking that installer that it can be run and it has access to be running through the installer on the local machine, and then it should update. It's a little bit slow, these slides, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's just waiting for the service to restart, and then it should update and tell you that it's been updated to the latest version. Currently, the remote update is on a machine-by-machine basis. You have to go through each one and select them. It is on the wish list to allow you to batch this updating. Obviously, the obvious requirement here is, when you're happy you want to update many machines to the same version, you can kind of roll that out. It's definitely coming in a later release, but currently, to keep things simple, they've just done it on a per machine basis. Usually, that whole process doesn't take more than a few seconds, and you can get it running, minimize that window, go to another one, get that one running, minimize that window, and you can have several updating at the same time if you want to. If we look a little bit further into the alert side of things, so far we've talked about managing BackupAssist installations, looking at jobs, remotely controlling installations, updating them, but the actual alerts are all under a separate section. So down the left-hand side, you'll see there's a site alert section. Now, there's two levels of alerting. There's the site-based alerting, where you can see all information of a particular site, but there's also a global alerting where you can see all sites and all potential issues across those sites. There's also the ability to send email reports at both the site level and at the global level. So if you imagine a scenario where a reseller is managing multiple BackupAssist installations on behalf of multiple customers, you could have a global email being sent to the reseller telling them about all of their customers and any particular issues that need to be addressed, but also a separate site email going to a site manager that's only interested in potential issues on that site. Just to keep things simple, I'm just going to talk through a site scenario. So you can see here that if we've looked at a particular site, I'm already on the Zen Software site, so I can look at the alerts for that site. There's my one error that I need to address, and I can go straight into there to look at the details. Seem to have an extra slide in there. If I actually select that error, then again, just like before when we looked at what reports, it will bring up the relevant report for that error, and immediately I can see what's going on. The actual email reporting side, if I go back to the site alerts page, if I click on this site email report button, that allows me to then configure it to send emails. So I can put in some details as where the message is going to be coming from, what subject it has, who I want to send those messages to. So, for this site, I might be interested to send it to a particular address at the site domain, and then what SMTP server to use for this specific email. So you can use different SMTP servers on a site-by-site basis. Generally speaking, you'd probably be sending all of these through one server close to the multi-site manager, but it's totally configurable here. You can obviously test these settings and double check that the emails are going through before you leave them to run automatically. And also you can choose the time for those report emails to go out. If any of you have used the central monitoring console before, you may be aware that it's very important to pick a time here that's after the last job has run, because you don't want the reports leaving before all of the jobs have run. So if you've got jobs running throughout the night and potentially aren't finished until the early morning, then you may need to pick a time here that's later in the morning, maybe 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, that sort of time. But it's really a case of experimenting a little bit and having a look at the detailed reports showing you what time jobs are finishing. What do the emails actually look like that get sent? Well, they're very straightforward at the moment. They're clear and to the point. It's similar to the central monitoring console emails, if you've ever seen those. The important information is right at the top. So all of the sites that need attention stare you in the face, and you can see, whether there's any warnings that needed, and then that's broken down into, the specific warnings, and we can click through for more information. This will evolve. Obviously, this is a first release of the multi-site manager, so I can see this will become more user-friendly as time goes on. But they're very interested in people's opinions of what they want to see in these daily reports. Okay, license management. That's probably one of the last things to look at. The other nice thing about having all of the information of multiple sites all being collated into one portal is that you can then quickly get a good overview of all of the licenses, what version they're running, how much upgrade protection they've got, and exactly which modules are installed on which machine. That's nice and straightforward. You can select a site as well to actually get the license information and keys, etc. But just knowing this straight away, you can spot that maybe this site should have a plugin that it hasn't got, and why is that not running. So it's very useful to get a good overview of the licenses in one place. Just wrapping up, talking about the pricing. I sort of mentioned earlier on, there's the way that the BackupAssist multi-site manager works is it's a single installation and one license for the actual BAMM BackupAssist multi-site manager piece of software. You can then install that on premise or in the cloud. It's wherever you want to install that. You can move it if you need to and move the licenses. That license covers an unlimited number of BackupAssist installations, but it is an annual fee. It's the same price year on year. The prices are on the website. I don't want to include them here because they potentially can change. They are on the website if you want to have a look at them. It's a single annual fee, so year on year you pay the same, and like I mentioned before, every BackupAssist installation must have upgrade cover. There are not-for-profit discounts for schools, colleges, and charities, so bear that in mind. And also there's a reseller discount, so if you're one of our BackupAssist resellers, you want to use this yourself for managing your own customers, then your normal reseller discount will apply. As with all of our products, there's a 30-day free trial, and please feel free to download that, have a play with the software. Even just installing it locally on your network and connecting a handful of BackupAssist installations to it to get a feeling for it is absolutely fine. There's nothing stopping you then reusing or purchasing the license externally or trialing it again on another machine. We're really keen for people to download it, have a play with it, see what they think. It's the first release of this software, so obviously, we're keen for feedback, for ideas that what the direction it can take. But that really sort of covers the webinar for today. It's really just a brief overview. Thanks very much, everyone who's come. It's been useful, hopefully. If you haven't already, please feel free to leave me a comment below. I'll get through those shortly. And also, I don't know what's going on here, slightly delayed. If you're watching this online, please click subscribe. We do lots of webinar sessions and recorded videos. If you'd like to be alerted as soon as new material comes online, then subscribe to our channel and that will happen automatically. Thanks very much.